YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. And I got some post-NFL free agency predictions here. This is the AFC video. We're going to do an NFC video as well, but I'm going division by division and ranking these teams 1 through 4 here based on their teams, their rosters after free agency. Now, the draft will change things, and we'll go into those predictions again and then go further in playoffs and Super Bowl like we do every year. But yeah, rookies make big-time impacts, everybody should know that, but it feels even bigger today in today's era. So that definitely can change things. The schedule will obviously change things. Record predictions, who you're playing when, definitely matters. So this is kind of just rankings by division based on where their roster stands, especially in the important spots. So I'm going to break it down again. This is the AFC video. There will be an NFC one on the channel. By the time you're listening to this, there might be another NFC one already up on the channel. Follow our Twitter for constant NFL talk, covering the NFL draft on there as well. Please subscribe to the channel. We got full NFL coverage, NFL offseason draft predictions, rankings, anything you can think of. We got you. And there's a link in the comments for anything that you need here. And then here is our Twitter. Yeah, we got a fan voted mock draft going on right now. We're a few picks in. So we're always tweeting about it, posting it. This will turn into a video. So, yeah, check it out. AFC East we're starting with. And there's fourth place. I got the Jets right now. I am excited about the Jets. And the draft could change things here. The draft could change things. I'm excited about the Jets, though. I mean, you see, for so long, they struggled to get this and that and, receivers and edge rushers, and they're already getting that. They had Corey Davis, Keelan Cole, edge rushers. They had Carl Lawson. I'm pumped about Quinnen Williams here, no matter who the coach would be, because Quinnen Williams was a huge fan of him out of Alabama, still am. But Robert Saleh's scheme, I think, is going to be perfect for him because he's very versatile, where he can almost play any position across the defensive line. I mean, he can play nose tackle if you need him to. He can play DN if you need him to. So I'm really excited about that. Draft didn't happen yet. They could add Zach Wilson here. I'm a big Zach Wilson guy. That could help out. They do need more offensive line. They need some corners. They're pretty weak at that position. But if they continue to build a pass rush, corner, it's not going to, you can put almost anybody out there. Got to be somebody decent, obviously. But and they'll play a lot better than you would expect them to because that scheme and that pass rush. So the Jets could move up. It actually turned into a tough division. But with the draft, they definitely could move up. And then who I got at 3, a team that can definitely move up as well. But I got the Dolphins for now. Here it's a tough team too. Almost made the playoffs last year. I expect Tua to play way better this year. I really do. Adding Will Fuller is fantastic. See how the offensive line is. Offensive line was kind of surprisingly good for the first portion of last year. Then it kind of started to okay, that's kind of more what we expected. Down the stretch of the season. So it's kind of tough to predict where that offensive line will be. I do like the upside of it. It'd be ideal if they can find a right tackle, because I like Robert Hunt. Is a really good guard. I think he'd be a future Pro Bowler. I liked him a lot out of Louisiana. Defensively, yeah, here's the good thing for the Dolphins. The good news is they were ahead of schedule last year. They were ahead of schedule, and they got a pretty good roster. Like I said, guys are going to be getting better here. Maybe looking at their defense, their defense did give up some yards, some points. They got some clutch turnovers, even scores on defense and in special teams, which helped them win really quite a few extra games. Now, that's kind of a good thing, but then if you look at the NFL, the past, things like that are really, really hard to repeat, but they do have a good defense. I wish they kind of went out and made it better, though. They did add Bernard McKinney, move on from Van Noy. Pass rush could be better. Ogba was surprisingly good. Are they going to continue on what they did last year? So that's kind of the question, the questions there. But I do like this team. Again, 2 first-round picks. If they continue to draft, get some solid players there with their valuable picks, they can finish first. So, I mean, I take that much away from the draft. I can change my predictions from the draft big time. And we can just wait and see. Those will be updated predictions there, at the right time. But and then there's 1 and 2. I got the Bills at 1, Patriots at 2. Patriots defense is going to be close to back. It's going to be a really good defense. Again, a lot of opt-out guys coming back. They're adding guys, of course. They're pretty good in every phase of that defense now when they were not last year. And looking at the offense, Yeah, a lot rides on, who their quarterback will be. Is it going to be Cam Newton? I think it'll be better than last year because of what's around him, but is it going to be by enough? How good is he going to be? If they can add, the Patriots can add a legit quarterback, I mean, we could be talking about one of the best teams in football. We could be talking about a serious contender, back as the AFC East top dog perhaps. It's a really good roster, a lot of talent, a lot of new faces though. Used to back in the day, it used to be, if you get that many new faces in there, does it click right away? And, never really did. But recently I've noticed that it's not really a thing anymore. Quick turnarounds, So we'll see. But I like that roster. I still got the Bills at 1. They were really getting hot at the end of the regular season. I mean, they made it to the AFC Championship game, but I liked it way better the way they played in the regular season there, towards the end. It looked like maybe the most dominant team in football. So I think it's going to be a dominant regular season team. We'll see if they take the next step in the playoffs, which they very well could because it's a young, complete team. But yeah, I got them finishing first. We move on to the AFC North, and I got the Bengals 4th. And this is tough for me because I was kind of believing in the Bengals a little bit. As the season was coming to the end, the 2020 season, I was kind of thinking in the back of my mind, I could have the Bengals being one of those worst the first team, seriously, because I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. You guys know I'm a big Jesse Bates guy too, but there's guys across that team that I like, young guys that are getting better. I still like Joe Mixon. He's been a little underwhelming, but it's good, mainly because of the offensive line. But love me some Tyler Boyd. There's a lot of pieces they got that I really like. Maybe Joe Burrow, mainly Joe Burrow, I should say. How high-powered that passing game could be. But I was kind of thinking they could go from worst to first because they got a great opportunity. They got a lot of cap space. They can get their key guys back they need, and they can just build that offensive line. They can build the linebacker unit. The rest of get Carl Lawson back. Build the rest of the pass rush because they need more of it. And they can do that with this cap space and the great draft capital position, I should say. And they didn't really do that. I like a pickup like Mike Hilton. Love that type of pickup. But other than that, pretty disappointing, pretty underwhelming free agency. So they're not on schedule for my schedule. They're not on my schedule right now where I thought they could be. Because they're a young team, so it's not the end of the world, but I didn't want them to act like that, because it could have been a quick turnaround. So I got them at 4 just because they got some pretty big holes across the roster. Burrow coming off that injury with that offensive line. The draft's coming up. They have a very high pick, so this could change. This could definitely change here. Number 3, I think the Bengals are actually pretty close to this team, which is surprising. The Steelers, who were the best, most dominant team in football for a good portion of the season last year, then they kind of got figured out a little bit, especially on offense because, their running game really wasn't there. Their downfield game really wasn't there. They were dominant in the short game, the quick passing game. It was really good, but once it's just what happens every NFL season. It's different teams every year. It's not always the Steelers, I'm saying, but, you start to you watch the tape, watch the film. It's more than a couple weeks of film. We get to watch them versus this many teams. Okay, we know how to game plan for them. So on top of them kind of getting figured out a little bit, they lost quite a bit. That offense line's a mess. The running back unit's still a mess. Where's Big Ben at? He can play, but where's his talent level at? Defensively, big loss in Bud Dupree. We saw the defense even take a step down when he got injured last year. No Mike Hilton. They cut Steven Nelson. So it's going to be a good defense, though. And it's still, it's a good division. It's a good number 3 here because I like Mike Tomlin. He's going to have a tough team. And they have the draft to, if they fix the offensive line, just adjust the offensive line and get a running back. I like that team. I like the team that much more. It sounds funny, offensive line and running back, but I like it that much more because even though their defense isn't going to be as good as it was last year because they lost pieces, it's still going to be a really good defense. So they could kind of leave the defense alone, even though there's a pretty big hole, I'd say, at corner. They can leave it alone and it could be okay because the name of the game is offense and they need more on offense, so they're not one-dimensional. They were specifically one-dimensional, quick passing game only. It's because what they had out in the field at the end of the day. The offensive line wasn't there. Big Ben's downfield game was hit or miss. No running game. So I got them at 3 in a really tight, really tough division. 1 and 2, I got the Browns at 1. I got the Ravens at 2. I love this Browns team right now. I'm feeling this Browns team. I'm feeling it. Offense, that offensive line, I did not expect that. I knew the offensive line was in the right track. I knew it was going to be good. I did not expect it to be maybe the best in football that fast, that quick of a turnaround. Usually it takes time for guys to click, not anymore, it feels like. Running game is really strong. Baker could get better. People forget that. Baker actually can get better, but he fits the Stefanski offense. I guess the Stefanski offense, maybe why it's a little scary at the Browns, even though I love the Browns right now, is, a lot of times seeing coaches win Coach of the Year, it's usually an offensive coach. It really doesn't have to come with the Coach of the Year part. We see offensive coaches have a system, and it's dominant, looks good, and all of a sudden it's just gone. And why aren't they good coaches anymore? Why isn't the system good anymore? Well, it's because, they were kind of new, and then, more film, more tape, more reps against that team, start to figure it out. But I think it's a pretty straightforward offense where there's really no unique game plan you have to come up with. It's either you can stop it or you can't. So I don't really think it's a game plan factor, and that's, in a way you wish you had a game plan problem for teams. But in this case, it's almost a blessing in disguise, almost a good thing, because I think teams knew what they were throwing at them. It's a West Coast offense. You're going to run the ball first. You're going to open up the play action pass. You can hit some daggers, downfield, explosive plays. Teams knew, and they still struggled to stop a little bit. Defense was the problem. I actually thought, at times their defense actually looked good last year. I thought their defense was actually, how do I put this? It wasn't as good as it looked at times, and it really didn't even look that good. So that was a problem for me kind of going forward, because I did create some crazy turnovers, I thought, and, is that going to repeat? But I do have a guy like Myles Garrett that's creating that. But they go out this free agency, and they build up the secondary, and they get some pieces in the front seven as well, but getting John Johnson, Troy Hill, getting, a lot of these secondary defensive backs take a bit to develop, if you're drafting them. So I actually like the route they took, especially for them. John Johnson and a guy like that, Troy Hill. I think it's perfect for playing these other top dogs in the AFC, and then just drafting the instant impact guys within the front seven, maybe another edge rusher perhaps. So I really like this Browns team. It's a really good team, and they're getting serious here. They're a contender. They're the legitimate. And the Ravens at 2. The thing about the Ravens is that they're going to be a good team. Like, there's teams that get good, and then all of a sudden they're just not good anymore. 3 years later, and then they go back and they go. It's kind of inconsistent. It's just really 90% of the teams in the NFL. Not the Ravens. I think the Ravens, the way they sit with their key players and their coaching staff, they're going to be good no matter what. Pretty much. They're going to be there no matter what. This team's not going to finish third or fourth in this division. They're going to finish first or second. It's a good defense, good offense. Lamar Jackson, absolutely dangerous. They got to add more, though. I do feel like their roster actually feels a little worse than it was last year. We still got the draft. Receivers the same, pretty much. And I don't really count Watkins as a lot here, but they do need to add a number one receiver. But the offensive line, I guess depending on Orlando Brown, could be worse. In the pass rush, go from Ngakoue and Judon to McPhee and Bowser. It needs to be better as well. But it's going to be a really good team. I just think the Browns got them beat at the moment. So those are my AFC North rankings. AFC South, I think this is the most, kind of just obvious rankings at the moment. I think most people will have this, similar lineup. The Texans are a mess right now. If Deshaun Watson's playing and he's good to go, everything, him by himself could really win the division. Not that that'd be my prediction, but and they got a pretty good running back room. They lost Will Fuller, though. Offensive line, I thought the offensive line would be better last year. It really wasn't, but it could be better this year. Defense, they've filled some holes, but not with the best players. It's a team that's kind of a work in progress. They're still trying to fit the mold of the new staff here. It's a little bit of a mess right now. 3, where, like I said, right now I think it's pretty obvious who's 1, 2, 3, 4. But after the draft, it's not going to be because of this team. The Jacksonville Jaguars literally can go from worst to first with, rookies taking over the team, really, and second-year guys too, I guess. But, because, the draft didn't happen yet. They're going to add Trevor Lawrence. They have a second first-round pick. The offensive line looks fine to me right now. I'm good with the offensive line, and that's a key important piece. The pass rush wasn't good last year, but switching to a 3-4 where Josh Allen fits a lot better. I think this kid's going to be a stud. Chase On needs to He was a raw prospect. He's going to be good down the line. Hopefully he progresses a little faster. Actual defensive line, they added pieces. They got better, but it could be better still. Secondary looks better. It's going to be a pretty good team, with this draft on top. They legitimately could finish first. They could. So we'll see how they draft. You can't just have the picks. You have to nail those picks. You got to do well in the draft. So we'll see where I have them after the draft. Right now I got the Colts at 2, the Titans at 1. Really, after the Colts lost that playoff game against the Bills, where I thought they played well, back then, if I were to predict, how do I put this? If I were to predict my predictions, if I could have predicted then who I would be predicting to be first in this division, I would have said the Colts. Yeah, I'm going to predict the Colts because I really loved where they took their game at the end of last year, how both sides of the ball was playing, and they have all this cap space to get these players. And it just didn't really happen. It didn't really happen the way I talked about the Bengals, where I can't compare the two teams, but where I expected them to go. They end up getting Carson Wentz. I'm not a big Carson Wentz guy, but he could work out. I'm a big Frank Reich guy. I love this coaching staff. So tremendous coaching staff. So I'm a big fan of theirs. I still think the offensive line would be solid, but no Costanzo in there. It feels like I thought they were going to get some top end play. I feel like they were going to make the roster better, really. Instead they've kind of created more holes. Left tackle, couple edge rush spots, which is, those are big, important pieces. So they kind of did the opposite of what I wanted them to do and what I thought they were going to do at the same time. But a well-coached team. They still got some, stud pieces, obviously. Nelson, Leonard, Buckner, so they have that to work with. So a really good draft here, could change it. They could finish first, like I said, with the Jaguars. And the same thing with the Colts. Even though they don't have the picks that the Jaguars have, they still could do it because they're a little closer, a little further along. The Titans, been a really good team. And they upgrade that pass rush. That's huge. One of the most important things in football. They had Bud Dupree and Danico Autry from the Colts, who I think is a really good fit in Tennessee. But Bud Dupree is a big-time addition. Some corners out, some corners in. I don't think it's much change because the corners are going to play, like we learned last year, just how the pass rush plays. If the pass rush is producing, they're going to play better, and they got a better pass rush. And then looking at offensively, they did lose some key guys. I'm not really too worried about the receiver position as long as they do fine in the draft. We'll see what happens. Replacing Jonnu Smith in the draft could be maybe the challenging part, but this can be a productive offense. Starts with running the ball, and I think they upgrade their defense. So right now, I do think this is the best team. I think it's clearly the best team in the division right now, but the Colts and the Jaguars could catch them. They very well could catch them. The Texans kind of fix their mess, I guess. Maybe they could because they do have the best quarterback in the division by a long shot, even though Tannehill's good. Moving on to the AFC West, tough division. I have the Chargers. The Chargers let me down. Chargers, just like the Bengals and the Colts, I kind of predicted them to be, I was going to predict them. Does that make any sense? That was kind of what I was saying with the Colts. I was predicting that I was going to predict them to be much better than this at this point. Still very early draft. They can turn it around if they draft like they did last year, perhaps. But yeah, I actually called them a top 5 contender for this year. I kind of want to throw in a wild card team, and that was before the offseason started. Because, I like Justin Herbert, love what he did last year. Like Brandon Staley, love the style defense, the scheme, and then kind of the players that kind of fit that scheme. They have a good amount of cap space. I thought it was a very appealing spot now, so I thought they were going to land. I thought they were going to do quite well in free agency. They didn't really do that. They missed on some players. The offensive line is maybe it's heading in the right direction. It feels like they got more holes now, though, because they don't really have those guys the guys that started for them last year were not good, but they were the starters for a reason, and those guys are kind of out, and they got better at center. They got better at center, but they need a left tackle. They need this, they need that across the offensive line. Fine with the receivers, running back room's all right. I like Justin Herbert. New coaching staff, is it going to change Herbert up a little bit? I think he's going to play fine, but there could be those moments, that sophomore moments, especially switching again, second year, learning a new system here. It seemed to be fine last year. Hopefully it is with this system. Defensively, again, I like the scheme. They got some studs, but they need to add, I thought adding a free safety, I thought was really important, especially for Brandon Staley's, scheme, how many safeties he played with the Rams and how important they were. They cut Hayward, they need to add another outside corner. They need to add 3-4 edge rushers because Bosa is going to be more of a 3-4 end. They need the edge rushers. Right now it's looking like Nwosu and Fackrell as the edge rushers. So they have more hole. They have some big holes that I didn't think they would have at this point, but it's only half of the offseason, so that's the good thing. That's a damn good number 4 because the AFC West is that good. They could make a run for like I said a couple months ago when I was doing my way too early who will be contenders. They can make a run at Kansas City, but right now where they sit, evaluating this roster, they're sitting at 4 for me. 3 is gonna be the Raiders. I like what they did, adding pass rush. Whether it's Ngakoue, Solomon Thomas, Quentin Jefferson, they added to that group, which they needed to do. It's gonna be a better scheme, defensive scheme. They got Gus Bradley in there. It's gonna fit. It's going to be a lot easier for some of those corners specifically. They do need to add a veteran corner, another corner at least. They need to add a free safety still. The defense is on the right track because who's coaching it, the scheme, and the pass rush they added, but they do need to add more. Offensively, I'm not a lot of people seem to be worried about their offensive line. I'm not really worried about it. They had extremely good depth. Some of those starters were hurt anyways. It's not better than it was last year. It could be the same. It could be slightly worse. Perhaps there's people that are kind of losing their minds over it. I'm not. I'm fine with it. I would like Derek Carr to put together a full season. It feels like every year he looks like easily a top 10 quarterback through the first portion, and then not even close to top 10. Not that he's bad or anything, but I mean, if we're talking top 10, not there in the second half of the season. But they got the coaching staff together now, and they got some talent. They do need to add some more pieces. I'd like for them to add more to the receiver unit as well. If they can add a legit number 1, they don't really need more receivers. They need a legit number 1, I think. Another one, I should say. But I got them at 3. Tight division, tough division. Any of these teams can finish first. And I would say any of them can finish last except for the Chiefs probably. And then that kind of tells you. I got the Broncos at 2. I was hyping the Broncos last year at this time. They got too beat up too early. Cortland Sutton, Von Miller, etc. Cornerback unit was atrocious, losing guys, and it wasn't good as it was. But I love this roster. Drew Lock. I like Drew Lock out of Missouri. I liked him. I didn't think he was anything crazy, but I liked him. But it's kind of gone down a little bit. He doesn't have a lot of reps underneath him. Under his belt here. So that means he still has some upside. He actually could get better. So, I'm starting to, you start to understand why they would like to, maybe they don't, but why they would like to give him more of a shot. But I've seen some play where it's like, can you fix that? He's got the arm talent, downfield especially. Can move if he has to, but he's really got to step it up because, that's why you can argue both sides because, this roster's so good. So good. It's got the talent for the quarterback. The offensive line really transformed. Defense could be one of the very best in football, maybe the best. If they had a legit quarterback, if Drew Lock can get there as well, either one, we're talking about maybe the best team in football, really. So that's where you kind of get a little frustrated and maybe a little impatient. I'm not a Broncos fan. I'm getting a little impatient there. Maybe too early because Drew Lock still needs more reps if it's fair, but it's a business game. If we can get better at quarterback here, we go do that, we can win the Super Bowl. So that's the way they got to think. And the Chiefs at 1 still. Patrick Mahomes, pretty much, the talent they got. Offensive line a little scary. I think interior will be better. You add Tooney, you're gonna be able to run the ball more. So I'm excited for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And that could actually open up the passing game. Not that they need to run to open up the passing game because Mahomes is obviously very good. Tackle-wise, though, it probably is. It's okay. It's better than what it was in the Super Bowl. I think people will look at it that way, which doesn't mean a lot because that wasn't their actual line in the Super Bowl. Technically, their starting line. But is it better than the regular season Chiefs, what the Chiefs offensive line was supposed to be? No, I think it's worse in terms of pass protection on the outside. So you do worry about that a little bit. They're going to be a very good team still. Defensively, they had Jaron Reed. That's fantastic. It's going to be around the same defense, in the same range there. It's going to be a very good team once again, but there's a lot of very good teams. I just predicted the divisions, and again, schedule will change things. We'll factor in the records, and we'll actually have we'll break all that down when the time's right, and then the draft will obviously change things. And yeah, I just don't really like making, in this specific video, making, the playoff seeding predictions and all that. I think it's too early for this, perhaps, but people want to see it, but it's definitely way too early for that. But, in terms of, if people are probably going to ask, so in terms of the contenders, everyone's going to throw the Chiefs and the Bills up there. And we can list off teams. There's teams that I didn't, give a high praise to on this video. That if they do the draft right, if they, get a couple more free agents, because there's still some good ones out there, they can actually go from, not getting much praise in this video to me actually thinking they're a contender. That's possible here. That is very possible. Talking about teams like the Chargers, who I thought could be a contender, but I got them sitting at 4 right now. And there's reasons for that, but there's reasons they can get out of that. But yeah, I love the Broncos roster. I like the Browns. I'm not a, the Browns. The Browns could do it. They could do it. I like, the Patriots. The Patriots and the Broncos pretty much the same boat. If they got a quarterback, those teams got a quarterback that's like a sure thing. Yeah, they're there with for me with the Browns, the Chiefs, and the Bills. If I had to say, because I know people are going to ask, if I had to say way too early stage right here, I think the Bills actually could be the best regular season AFC team. And the Chiefs with Mahomes in the playoffs, against the Bills again is very possible. I'm feeling the Browns right now. I'm just not trying to get ahead of myself because we've had very accurate predictions in the past, and I want to keep it that way when the time is right. We make those predictions, but I'm hyped on some teams. There's teams like I said, I can be hyped on. The draft, I've always been a believer that the draft can change things drastically. It can make, those rookies can make impact and could actually create a Super Bowl team. I think it applies now more than ever, with how those players are playing and in today's game. They're fitting right in with the veterans, and it's fantastic. So really excited for the draft. We'll have you covered for that. Again, we're doing the same video again, but for the NFC teams too. So I think the NFC is a lot better this year. I think there's more teams that will compete for the playoffs this year. Just a thought at the way too early stage. But that is going to do it for this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Follow us on Twitter for Fan Vote and Mock Draft, constant talk on just the NFL in general. We're always talking with you guys, so check us out there. Any link that you need like that will be pinned in the comments and or the description. But yeah, make sure you subscribe. If I didn't say that already, make sure you subscribe because we got the NFL content. We got it. So thanks everyone for watching. That's going to do it. Goodbye.